Your Creative Force by Avianne is currently available on Global Voice Radio.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You are listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
Hi there, this is Avianne coming to you from the lovely San Francisco Bay Area in California, the USA. And once again, like always, I'm bringing you a jam-packed show full of good tips and information that can truly help you succeed at living from your creative force and making your dreams a reality, right? That's what we're all about. This is the radio show, Your Creative Force, and this is episode 21, and our theme for today is starting a small business. Before I jump right in, I want to just mention why this theme is so important to me. It is because a lot of times people don't know how to make their dreams reality, right? They dream about it, they know what they want to do, they have a great plan. Sometimes they've even been mulling it over for years and they've always known that this is the thing they want to do. And when they explore their creative force, like we've talked about in previous episodes, this is the thing that keeps coming up for them, right? This is what I should be doing with my life. But a lot of people don't ever make the strides. They never get to the place where they actually do the doable steps to make that a reality, right? So today's episode is going to be super practical, boots on the ground, about how you actually go about starting a small business. This is a question I get a lot. A lot of people, when they find out what I do and they get involved with my business, want to know, how did you start this? Right? Because I actually started my business as a small business in the arts industry, which is kind of odd. A lot of people don't think of artists as business owners. Yet, if you are someone who is serious about wanting to accomplish something in your field, any field, the only way that you can seriously accomplish things is actually by starting a business, right? Otherwise, you're a charity. There's a big difference between a business and a charity, right? I don't give away my art for free. I actually make a living out of it, and I'm actually in the process starting new businesses and doing a lot of stuff in my industry that actually constitutes me having an official business. So that's what we're going to be speaking about today. So episode 21 of Your Creative Force, starting a small business. Let's go. How do we start making our dreams a reality when it comes to entrepreneurship and following our passion in a specific field? In episode 21 today, I want to provide you with valuable tips in the form of doable practical steps that you can take by starting a small business. Before we even start, it is important to know how to hire, what we stand for, and what makes us tick, right? A lot of the things we've covered in previous episodes, I would implore you to go and listen to my previous episodes, because a lot of what we are talking about today will make more sense and have more meaning and will be of more value to you if you listen to this episode in the light of the previous episodes that we have already done, right? Because in the previous episodes, we go deeper into some of these things and we kind of prepare you mentally and kind of help you to figure out what it is you really want to do and how to actually tap into your creative force to know about who you are and what you want to do, right? So that is all important. So I really want you to go and listen to the previous episodes if you have not done so yet, okay? We need to learn how to recognize and live from our creative force even when we face obstacles. Before we even start, it is important to know how to hire, what we stand for, and what makes us tick. Remember that. That is very important. But besides knowing who we are and what treasures we want to bring to the world, we also need to be practical and work with a plan to turn dreams into reality. In this episode, I will be referring to an article written by contributor Alyssa Gregory for the Balance Small Business, also known as thebalancesmb.com, right? It's a wonderful online resource if you're thinking of starting your own small business and running your own small business. You will find a lot of resources here and a lot of fantastic articles and a lot of fantastic tips on running, starting, etc. your small business. I'm going to mention it again. It's called thebalancesmb.com. Go there and you'll find great resources there. And so we're going to elaborate a lot from Alyssa Gregory's article, and I'm also going to be sharing a lot of my own authentic experiences and lessons learned in starting, running, and expanding a small business. I want to provide you with great insight into the pitfalls, benefits, and overall journey of starting a small business. Okay, and here it's going to be very important that you remember what we spoke about in our episode about the 4 different levels of entrepreneurship. Okay, what I'm talking to you about today has nothing to do with being involved in MLM. It has nothing to do with just doing a side hustle. This is when you've reached that point where you actually want to officially start a small business. Okay. Now you can start it full time or you can start it part time. Okay. But you have to have a strategy. You have to have a vision and you have to go about some doable steps. Okay. In the beginning, when we start out and we maybe aren't making a lot of money out of it, or we're not yet super serious about it or not sure where it's going, then we kind of just do it in our personal capacity and kind of do it as we go, right? But when you start getting more serious, this is how you do it. This is one way of making your entrepreneurial dreams real. There are other ways to do it, but this, I think, is a way that most people can utilize, okay? So when we dive deeper into this, what I'm going to be talking about applies to starting a small business in the USA, right? For you to be able to use this information and adapt it into your own business possibilities and your own business environment, so to speak, where you are at, you will probably need to look into your own country or your own state or your own province or city's business regulations and rules, right? These are very different. And even if you're in the United States, I just want you to realize something before we go into this content today. You have to understand that each city, even each city, not just each county or each province or each country, right? But each city has specific ways that they want you to do business if you're doing business in the city. Some people may need to get sales permits. Some people might need to get special legal things in place before they can do that. You can't just start a hair salon from your bedroom, okay? There are actually health regulations involved in doing things. There's actually a lot of legal things involved. So one of the things I would advise you to do is before you even think of formalizing anything, do contact your city, your county, your state, your country. Make sure that you connect with the right organizations, government organizations, and do your homework on what is required of you to officially run a business. There are many types of business formats. Usually there would be a kind of format where you can start a sole proprietorship, which is just you alone, you by your lonesome self, and you don't really need much to do that. And then there can be more complex ways to run and start a business, like creating a corporation. So you really need to make sure you do your homework. Homework. Really do that, because there's no way I can possibly in one show, or even if I use up all the rest of my shows for your creative force, I can never give you all the detail about how to do that according to the laws and regulations of where you're at. So really go read up on that, Google it, call them, go to your city council or your small business organization that is in your environment and go find out so that you don't get yourself in trouble, right? So Alyssa Gregory writes, there are more than 28 million small businesses in the United States, making up a whopping 99.7% of all U.S. businesses, according to the Small Business Administration. When you consider some of the most popular reasons to start a business, including having a unique business idea, designing a career that has the flexibility to grow with you, working toward financial independence, and investing in yourself, it is no wonder that small businesses are everywhere. Okay. And these are the things that usually motivate people to start a small business. You want to be independent. You want to be your own boss. You want to grow your career the way you want to grow it. You don't necessarily want to answer to people all the time, right? You want flexibility. These are good ideas, good reasons for starting a business. But not every small business is positioned for success. In fact, only about 2/3 of businesses with employees survive at least 2 years, and about half survive 5 years. So you may be in for a real challenge when you decide to take the plunge, ditch your day job, and become a business owner. The stage is often set in the beginning, so making sure you follow all necessary steps when starting your business can set the foundation for success moving forward, right? So before we delve into the 10 steps, I really want you to realize this. What Alyssa is talking about here is very important, okay? You have to be realistic, and you have to consider the fact that even if you put yourself 110% into this idea, it may not work out, and you need to be okay with that. Okay. I have tried many types of businesses in the art industry, and not all of them have been successful. I have failed, and you will probably fail. Okay. A lot of people go into it very starry-eyed. So I'm not meaning to burst your bubble or rain on your parade, but I want you to realize that not every business idea is going to pan out. Not everything you want to achieve in your business is going to work out. But at the same time, you're probably going to find that your idea evolves and grows, and other ideas come your way, and other opportunities come your way. And then you need to be smart enough and informed enough about your industry to know which way the wind blows and actually make some wise choices about changing direction should you need to, right? So, that all having been said, let's jump into step number 1. You have to do your research. I already touched on that, right? You have to know what is going on. You have to know what are the rules and regulations of your city, how you're able to legally start a business. You want to do it legal, right? A lot of people mean well and they start businesses, but they don't realize that they may be infringing on someone's copyright, for instance, or that they're using a private space that they are not legally allowed to use for a business, right? Like, for instance, certain types of health and food oriented businesses, you cannot do those from your home. You have to have actual licenses and you have to actually comply with certain regulations to start those, right? And like certain contracting business, you can't do every kind of business from home. So you have to be very, very careful how you do it, right? There are ways to do it and there are ways not to do it, but you want to make sure you're always above board, right? You don't want your country's legal officers to come knocking on your door and shutting down your business just because you made a silly mistake, not knowing really what you were getting into or not really having the right paperwork, right, that you need to be able to do it. So really do your research. Most likely, Alyssa writes, you have already identified a business idea. So now it is time to balance it with a little reality. Does your idea have the potential to succeed? You will need to run your business idea through a validation process before you go any further, right? You may, for instance, not want to start a business for selling umbrellas if you live in a super cold place where nobody ever gets outside because it's way too bad, right? The weather is so bad. Nobody ever gets outside. Nobody's ever going to walk in the rain or the sunshine. And now you are selling umbrellas, but nobody even uses umbrellas because they don't even go outside. You see what I mean? Kind of a silly example, but I think it gets the message across. You need to sell something, a service or a product that actually makes sense for where you're at, right? There's certain things that I sell and that I do that I probably will not do in every kind of environment, right? I really look at my target audience and my environment of where I sell things and how I sell things, right? Very, very important. So, in order for a small business to be successful, it must solve a problem, fulfill a need, or offer something the market actually wants or needs, right? What kind of, like, for instance, let's say you want to start a restaurant. If you live in a small city and there's already 10 Chinese restaurants, you may not want to start Chinese restaurant number 11, right? You may want to look at starting an Italian restaurant or something different, something unique, something that's going to set you apart. That's not going to be just another same old, me too kind of idea, right? You want to stand out. So you have to be critical, and you have to, I always bring my mentors and my business board members into this, where I'm asking them, this thing I want to pursue, this idea I have, is this viable? Is this sellable? Is this going to work for the market I'm trying to enter, right? So there are a number of ways, Alyssa writes, that you can identify this need, including research, focus groups, and even trial and error. As you explore the market, some of the questions you should answer include, is there a need for your anticipated products or services? Who needs it? Are there other companies offering similar products or services? And how do they do that? Do they do it now? Do they already do that? What is the competition like? How will your business fit into the market? These are good questions to ask, right? So you have to really become very critical and objective. You have to dissect your idea and pick it apart and see where its strengths and weaknesses are and try and improve upon your idea if you can, right? So, step 2 would be to make a plan. You need a plan in order to make your business idea a reality. A business plan is a blueprint that will guide your business from the startup phase through establishment and eventually business growth. And it is a must-have for all new businesses. Now, I'm going to be just honest with you guys. I didn't have a really solid business plan when I first started, and I don't think everyone does, and that's okay. If you haven't done it yet, you can always do it after the fact. And if you haven't done so and you've already started your small business or your entrepreneurial pursuits, I would implore you to write down your ideas and start elaborating on them, right? Because from those ideas, you will find you can develop a very solid business plan, okay? So, the good news is that there are different types of business plans for different types of businesses. If you intend to seek financial support from an investor or financial institution, a traditional business plan is a must. These typically include financial projections, a lot of numbers, a lot of technical things, right? So, this type of business plan, Alyssa writes, is generally long and thorough and has a common set of sections that investors and banks look for when they are validating your idea. If you don't anticipate seeking financial support, a simple one-page business plan can give you clarity about what you hope to achieve and how you can plan to do that. In fact, you can even create a working business plan on the back of a napkin and improve it over time. Some kind of plan in writing is always better than nothing. Remember that. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just pause here, and I went and I actually Googled this because I wanted to find kind of like a concise, summarized version for you guys about how you can actually draw up a business plan and what a business plan must include. So I'm going to go over this, and I found this on smallbusiness.yahoo.com, and on www.allbusiness.com. So go to those two resources and this will be there. So I'm going to quickly go over this with you guys. First, you must have an executive summary. This is a concise 1 to 4 page summary illustrating the key points that are detailed in each section of the ensuing business plan. The executive summary should stand on its own as a separate document, okay? Basically, this is where you just state, you as the business owner, what is your business idea and what do you plan to achieve with this business? Now, they say here it can be 1 page long or 4 page long. In my business plan, it's only a paragraph. This can be very short. It's like a summary of what is your business idea and how do you plan to make it work, right? It's kind of like a summary of the rest of everything you want to do with your business. Then you need a business overview. This offers a description of your business. It includes the legal structure, right? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you a closed corporation, a limited liability corporation? Are you a C Corp? Depending on where you live in the world, these terms would apply, right? Every country, every city may have slightly different wording for some of these things. So go and look up what is the different legal structures that you can do your business as, right? What kind of business do you want? The business formation history. How did you form the business? The type of business, what kind of industry you're in, right? The location of the business and the means of doing business. Is this an internet business, a storefront operation, a mail order business? What kind of business do you actually have, right? Then, your operations plan. This offers an explanation describing how the business will function, including the physical setup and responsibilities for specific tasks, right? Kind of more of a layout of how your business functions. Then there's the market analysis. You have to include an overview of the market as a whole with specific data and charts or graphs if appropriate. Define your target market and your plans for catering to this specific audience. Now, for me, I don't have all kinds of bells and whistles going on when it comes to these things. For me, I just state in my business plan that my target market for my fine art, for selling my fine art, is a high-end kind of client, right? I don't generally sell my art on street fairs or in local exhibitions. I am aiming more for regional exhibitions, online sales, receiving commissions, and now as we speak, as I am doing the show with you today, I'm actually in the process of opening my own art gallery. So I have a bit of a different angle than a lot of local artists do, and that is actually included in my business plan and in my market analysis, right? Okay, so then you have to be specific about your products and services. You have to describe the products manufactured or sold or the services offered. You have to classify the different types of products or services and provide a brief description of each, right? My business plan for my art academy, I would just say these are the kinds of classes I'm doing. This is who I'm doing them for. This is how long they are. This is when I run them during the week. Okay, and now it also includes a strategy for me to start creating online class options for people, which is a whole other animal on its own. And trust me, I am knee deep into doing the preliminary work for that. So you have to be sure about your products and services and write it down. Sometimes it helps to write it down so you're very clear on it. It's like often we walk around with these ideas in our heads, but we don't have clarity. And it's kind of hard for us to describe to other people what is going on in our brain, right? A business plan really will help you, even if you aren't interested in getting money from a bank or getting investors to invest in your business. Even if you're not doing it for financial purposes, you actually are doing it to help you stick to a plan, to help you maintain focus and not be all over the map. So your strategy is really focused and centered, right, around your actual idea, so that you can go look at this and pull things back to this idea if you start following rabbit trails. So this is very important for you to do, not just for the overall success of your business, but for you as the business owner to really keep your wits about it and retain your focus, right? So once you've got your products and services figured out and you've got those described. The next part is sales and marketing. You have to outline prices and sales information. You have to include rationalizations for why your audience will buy your products or services and how you will reach them through marketing and advertising efforts. Okay? Rationalizations, big word, almost tripped me up there. Rationalizations means that you logically think through something and you logically apply what you're thinking to your products or services. Why would someone pay you what they pay you? Why are you charging? What are you charging for it, right? And be very realistic and logical about it. Okay. If you want to offer art classes in the countryside, you're probably not going to be able to charge what you charge for offering the same in a big city. So you have to really think about your kind of product and where you're selling it and how you're selling it, right? Or your service, right? Then competitive analysis. You have to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of your direct and indirect competitors. Demonstrate how you will gain a competitive edge against your competition. Now, I'm not going to give away all my business secrets when it comes to my competition on my show, right? Because this is kind of my covert thing that I'm doing to give me an edge. But I can just tell you that I have very specific things that I do in my business. Things I do very differently from other artists. And I know that those things give me a competitive edge. Then you have to have a management team. Provide pertinent, concise background information on all key players involved in the business. If you have contractors, this will also apply to them. Contractors, vendors, team members, you have to write down who they are and how they're contributing to your business, right? Then you need a financial plan. Now, my financial plan is pretty straightforward at this point because I don't have investors. I am the CEO of the business on paper. I am the big kahuna, right? And I don't really partner with financial partners at this point in my game. So my financial plan is pretty straightforward. My financial plan is basically to make money. Okay, so you have to include all financial information from startup costs to balance sheets. The financial sections should include the amount necessary to start or maintain the business, the amount needed over the next 2, 3, and even 5 years, plans to use the funds, anticipated need for additional funding, ongoing business expenses including salaries, insurance costs, promotional expenses, etc. And then you have to do projections, okay? You have to provide projected income statements and balance sheets for at least 2 or 3 years. Now, this last part, the financial plan and the projections, these depend on what kind of business you have and how far along you are in the game, right? I don't have super much detail on these in my own business right now because I just recently upgraded my business from a sole proprietorship to an LLC. So for me, I'm brand new at this. My industry is the arts industry. So I don't have a super complex financial thing laid out, but I do know where I'm going. I can go and look back at my profits and so forth. For me, I am leaving some of this to the person who is in charge of my financial management, my accountant, right? My accountant has to do with this and my accountant tells me a lot about what is going on financially and how to project certain things. I have third-party help with this, is what I'm telling you. You don't have to be a financial genius to figure it out. You can have someone else help you, and your financial plan can be very, very simple. Okay, my financial plan depends on which product or which service you're actually talking about because it's very different from product to product or service to service, how my financial plan actually plays into that. So you can do this with some outside help. Okay, so I just gave you a rundown of everything you need in a business plan. And at the end of your business plan, you can attach supporting documents such as articles on the company, resumes of key personnel, etc. So this concludes part 1 of our show today, Starting a Small Business of Your Creative Force, episode 21, and we will be back with part 2 after the break.
Catch the fire of creativity. Visit artbyavianne.com. AVIANNE. And now we return to our show with Avianne.
And we are back with part 2 of our show today, episode 21, Starting a Small Business, and we are looking at 10 steps to start a small business. Are you ready to roll? Because we are going to jump right back in, okay? Step 3, once you've got all the above figured out, is you have to plan your finances. Alyssa writes, starting a small business doesn't have to require a lot of money, but it will involve some initial investment, as well as the ability to cover ongoing expenses before you are turning a profit. Put together a spreadsheet that estimates the one-time startup costs for your business, licenses and permits included, right? Equipment, legal fees, insurance, branding, market research, inventory, trademark, grand opening events, property leases, etc., as well as what you anticipate you will need to keep your business running for at least 12 months. Rent, utilities, marketing and advertising, production, supplies, travel expenses, employee salaries, your own salary, etc. Those numbers combined is the initial investment you will need. Now that you have a rough number in mind, there are a number of ways you can fund your small business, including financing. Now, financing being the first one here that is mentioned by Alyssa, that can mean that you go into debt by taking a bank loan, right? Or it can mean that you trade shared ownership of your business for shares in your business, and people who invest in your business by giving you money up front can then cash in on that and get some profit out of your business once your business becomes profitable, right? Then you also can get a small business loan. There is a lot of institutions and banks that provide small business loans. You can get small business grants. Some cities and some countries, they do provide small business grants to people starting up a new business, right? Because you have to understand some things. Cities really like businesses, okay? If you just follow the rules and you work with your city, so you do everything by the book, your city will actually likely provide you with good resources and some support, right? Sometimes even financial support or logistical support to help you run a business, start a business, and grow a business. Because for a city, a business means often more taxes. It means more employment. So there are benefits for a city. If you start a business and you are successful, your community benefits, your city benefits. So like chambers of commerce, go to them, ask them about the different resources and options that you have, right? Because your city will probably want to help you, right? So yes, financing, small business loans and small business grants that you might want to look into. Then you also have angel investors. Angel investors usually invest money and then expect some sort of a return at a later stage, but they're not actively involved in the day-to-day running of your business or in what's going on with your business. They just want to see some return on their investment at some point. And then crowdfunding, right? Like GoFundMe or Kickstarter. There's a lot of ways that you can crowdfund something that you're starting, right? Also with incentives, of course, for the people helping you to actually get something out of it at some point, right? So, and this is actually the way I did it. You can also attempt to get your business off the ground by bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is when you use as little capital as necessary to start your business. You may find that a combination of the paths listed above work best. The goal here, though, is to work through the options and create a plan for setting up the capital you need to get your business off the ground, okay? Now, for me, planning my finances, it was kind of simple, okay? Like, for my business, I didn't need a lot of startup costs. I didn't have a lot of overhead because I was able to start my business in my home and keep things really simple in the beginning. And that is a tip that I would really throw in here at this point of our show today is don't feel overwhelmed. When I'm going through all these things that you need to do to start a business, not all of this may apply to you right off the bat. And not all of this need to be rocket science for you either. There is something to be said for overthinking and over-engineering things, right? I am a very intuitive person. And before I actually started my own business in the arts industry, I worked in the art industry for other artists and other creative entrepreneurs for a while. So I kind of had a rough idea and an instinctive feel for a lot of these things. I did not write down all these things in detail before I started, right? I did not have a super complicated financial plan because for me, it was just keeping track of what I make, my expenses and my income, keeping things very basic. And then as things become more complicated, I will add more complicated processes and methods and record keeping and projections. Now that I went from being a sole proprietor to an LLC, there are more complex things in play, right? And I have this sneaky suspicion that my accountant is going to want to sit down with me at some point and tell me to start doing certain things differently, right? Which I'm open to and which I will. But I'm trying not to be overwhelmed by the stress of it, okay? You have to understand that starting a small business can be extremely stressful if you start overthinking and over-engineering it, okay? And a tip I can give you right here is if it is at all possible for you to start your business from home, right? From your garage or from a spare bedroom that you have, or it is possible for you to just rent a very small space in a community center, or maybe even start your business from a coffee shop if that's possible, if you're running an online business, right? It's good to have a dedicated space to start your business from so that you know that you're serious about it, right? But you can start it simple without tons of overhead. That is one tip I would give anyone wanting to start a small business. If you can start it without having a ton of overhead, that is absolutely your best bet in starting without totally freaking yourself out financially, okay? In my industry, the art industry, starting out doing art classes from my home was how I started my art academy. Starting out selling my artwork from my home was how I started out doing art from my home and then putting it in local art shows. So the costs of entering these shows, the cost of running classes from my home, the initial costs I had with supplies and so forth, they were pretty minimal because I didn't have a ton of overheads suddenly thrusted upon me, okay? If you go directly into a brick and mortar retail store, or let's say you have a dance studio and you have to rent a huge commercial or community space and your overheads become really a lot pretty quickly, that is something that you need to plan out really well. For me, it was different because I could start it from home and I could kind of build it one student at a time, one client at a time for my art. So that was not that stressful for me. And of course, it helped that I lived in a decent neighborhood so people could actually feel safe and there was parking, right? You have to think of these things. So people could actually drop their kids off safely for art classes. People could actually come to my home and be in a nice, safe environment to do business with me. And I could actually manage it on a practical and financial level. So don't freak yourself out when you hear all these things I'm talking about. I just want you to be aware of these because most of these will probably apply to you, but not all of it will. So take a deep breath. Take a sip of your coffee right now if that's what you need to do. But just realize that I'm giving you the full scope, right? I'm giving you the big picture with some details thrown in. But that doesn't mean that you need to be completely overwhelmed because all of these are what you need to do all at once, right? You can do this in stages. Remember in the beginning we said maybe you can just start by writing it down on a napkin when you're talking to your friend in a coffee shop, okay? Start easy. That's the thing. I'm giving you good information that will apply to you in some way, shape, or form if you are an entrepreneur wanting to start a small business in any country or any city in the world. These are good tips, but it doesn't mean you need to tackle all of these at once and have all your ducks 100% in a row before you start, okay? A lot of this will change. I can tell you that my business plan has probably changed about 10 times in the last 5 years, okay? As you grow and evolve, you're probably going to watch your business also grow and evolve organically in a way that will actually make it so that you have to adapt your business plan. So none of this is cast in stone. This is not the law of all laws, right? These are just things I'm telling you that will help you to start a business, things you need to think about. And you are the only one who in the end will be able to say, this applies to me, or maybe this doesn't apply to me. Okay. So you have the authority to do that. This is not a law. This is just a tool to help you. So think of it in that terms, right? So you will be looking at possibly financing, small business loans, small business grants, angel investors, or crowdfunding. Or if you're like me, I do things the hard way sometimes, but I am old school. I don't like debt. So I try and keep my debt very low. Okay. And whenever possible, I make sure I don't have any debt. Okay. Like, for instance, another little tip. I don't believe in living from a ton of debt. So I don't have debt on my car, for instance. I drive a slightly older car. It's a very nice car, but it's a little bit older because I just don't see why I should put up $50,000 for the new model of the car that I drive, right? My car's fine. I keep it in good working condition, but I'm just not seeing the worth of spending so much money on a brand new car. Now, if I was a real estate agent in an upscale neighborhood, I may want to drive a different car, right? So it all depends on where you're at and what is important. But if I can give you one tip, keep your debt low, keep your overheads low, right? That's a very good tip for you if you're just starting up, and if you're not someone who is involved in a kind of business where you need angel investors or financing or loans or stuff, then keep things simple for yourself. Don't get yourself in a flat spin over any of this, okay? Okay, so sometimes you may even want to combine it, right? I don't really have a small business loan, but I have utilized a business line of credit. And from time to time, if I have to make huge purchases for my business, I do utilize that because it's an easy way for me to get my hands on money without having to dump myself into totally horrible debt, right? And then I pay it off as quickly as I can. So there are ways to go about this. Really talk to your bank also. Make sure that you understand the services they offer, but do not be duped into going into tons and tons of debt to start your business. Keep your overheads as low as you can. Keep your startup costs as low as you can. Okay. In the beginning, be willing to wear many hats so that you can do a lot of stuff yourself. But as you grow, get people, employ people or contract people to help you, because as your operations grow, you will probably not be able to do everything yourself anymore and still do it really, really well. So remember that becomes really important. Then step 4, you need to choose a business structure. Right? We were touching on this before, okay, when we were talking about what kind of business you want. Do you want to be a sole proprietorship, a partnership, a limited liability company, or a corporation? The business entity you choose will impact many factors, from your business name to your liability to how you file your taxes. So this is a legal thing, and I would really implore you, get some legal advice on this, okay? I had some advice from someone who's very knowledgeable in helping people start businesses, and I had some input from my tax preparer to also help me to know what to do and what kind of business to run. If you can start as a sole proprietorship, that is fine. That is probably the least costly way to start, and you can move up from there. Right now, I'm an LLC, and in a few years from now, I'm probably going to become a C Corp, right? In your country, you may have different definitions, different names for these things, but really look into it, okay? You may choose an initial business structure and then reevaluate and change your structure as your business grows and needs change. So once again, this is not cast in stone, but you do want to separate your business from your personal life. So you don't want to just have one bank account and it's all your personal and business mixed together. You want separate bank accounts. You want a separate business entity. So formalize it. Get the licenses. Make it separate, okay, as soon as you can. It really helps with record keeping, and it really helps with keeping things legal and above the board for yourself. You do not want to get in trouble with the law because you did business on the side in any kind of illegitimate way just because you didn't know what you were doing, right? And I've advised many people on this before because I noticed, and I'm like, you know what? If you do that in the state of California, you have to pay sales tax on that. If the state of California ever finds out you're doing all that and you're not paying any sales tax, you'll be in huge trouble and you'll probably end up losing your business. And you can even end up with hefty fines for your taxes. And if you really take it too far, oh my gosh, you can even land yourself in jail, right? So you don't want that to happen to you just because you didn't know. It is your responsibility and your responsibility only to inform yourself about these things. So really do your homework, right? So, depending on the complexity of your business, it may be worth investing in a consultation from an attorney or a CPA, which is a tax preparer, essentially, to ensure you are making the right structural choice for your business financially. Do not just do stuff because other people do it, okay? Do what is right for you. Get informed advice. Do research. Speak to people who deal with these things every day, right? Then step 5, you have to pick and register your business name. Okay? Alyssa writes, your business name plays a role in almost every aspect of your business. So you want it to be a good one. You want to make sure that you think through all the potential implications as you explore your options and choose your business name. Once you have chosen a name for your business, you will need to check if it's trademarked or currently in use. Then you will need to register it. A sole proprietor must register their business name with either their state or county clerk. Corporations, LLCs, or limited partnerships typically register their business name when the formation paperwork is filed. Don't forget to register your domain name, your website name, right? Once you have selected your business name. And I just want to give a quick side note on this, okay? Here's a tip, and I've learned this from experience, and I've learned this from seeing other people make this mistake, okay? Don't make your business name complicated, and don't make it so fancy or so likable to yourself that it's not hitting the mark. And here's what I mean when I say that, okay? My business name is Avianne LLC, and everything I do is under Avianne LLC, and that name is my trademark, that name is my everything, just Avianne LLC. It's simple, it's one word, okay? Under that, I can do my art academy, I can do everything else I'm doing, okay? Now, I'm very careful of telling people exactly what they should and shouldn't do when it comes to your business name, but one thing I will tell you is think of business names that are very successful and about how simple they are, right? Microsoft, very simple name. Virgin, very simple business name, okay? Apple, you can't get simpler than the word Apple, right? These are very successful businesses. Facebook, very, very successful. Things are super easy, super simple. There's value in simplicity, okay? Also, don't pick a name that is so far-fetched that nobody even gets what you're talking about, right? For instance, if you have a name that says something like, let's say, analysis.com. Nobody's going to know what that means. Analysis, what is analysis, right? when I registered my business domain names online, the names I registered were things like artbyavianne.com, takeartclasses.com, right? Those are my domain names. Because when someone type into Google Take Art Classes, guess what? My domain name comes up because it's takeartclasses.com, right? So it's easy. It's targeted. I don't always use my business name for my domain name. You have to be clever about it. And here's something I will tell you, okay? I can't go into too much detail and depth with this with one radio show with you guys today, but all I can tell you is get advice. Okay? Sit down with someone who owns an ad agency, who owns a branding agency, and who knows their stuff in your local area, who understands about marketing and picking out good names for a business. Very important. If you pick out a bad name, it can make things really, really convoluted for you. Or if you pick out a name of somebody that's already being used. For instance, nobody can now start a business saying the business name is Apple, right? Because Apple will never allow you to get away with that. They will sue you. They will stop you from using their business name, right? So you really have to do your homework and talk to people. I did my homework and I'm doing my branding and picked my business names and my domain names in very specific ways so that it can actually be to my advantage. Okay? So really be careful about that and how you go about that. Okay? So that's what I wanted to say about that. Then, okay, after you have registered your business name, you have to have a good strategy. Okay, you have to really have a good strategy for marketing and branding that name. Then step 6, you have to get licenses and permits. Paperwork is a part of the process when you start your own business. There are a variety of small business license and permits that may apply to your situation, depending on the type of business you are starting and where you are located. You will need to research what licenses and permits apply to your business during the startup process. Do your due diligence, okay? Call your county, call your state, call your country, call your city. Make sure you know what applies. And with that, we are going to take a break and we will be back with part 3 in a few minutes.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. And now we return to our show with your host, Avianne.
And we are back with part 3 of our show today of Your Creative Force, episode 21, starting a small business. And we're going to jump right back into our 10 steps, right? So 10 steps to start a small business. Number 7, choose your accounting system. Small businesses run most effectively when there are systems in place. One of the most important systems for a small business is an accounting system. Your accounting system is necessary in order to create and manage your budget, set your rates and prices, conduct business with others, and file your taxes. You can set up your accounting system yourself, or you can hire an accountant to take away some of the guesswork. If you decide to get started on your own, make sure you consider these questions that are vital when choosing accounting software. Here's just a few questions you can consider, right? And these are my questions, okay? So the questions are like, what works for you? Number 1, right? I can tell you right off the bat that I am not a good person when it comes to computers. I get super confused. I mess up. I stress out, and it actually ends up being more work and worse for me because someone has to come and fix it, right? I'm not a very technologically oriented person, okay? So the first question, choosing accounting software or choosing the way you do your accounting would be, what works for you? I know that a computer system at this point doesn't work for me. So what does work for me is another option, another question you need to ask, do I need an actual person in charge of this? And that would be yes, in my case. I have someone in charge of that. Because if I have to stress about that, I go ballistic. Okay? Then, a third question you can ask is, what kind of software works for you? If you go the route of using computer software, pick one that actually is easy for you. I know a lot of people use QuickBooks. Some people use other software that works for them. If you can find one that is industry specific, quick and can be working with record keeping and can cross relate to other software. That usually works well. I would say a part of my accounting at this point is done through some of my third-party vendors like Wave Apps and PayPal. I use a lot of things in there and to apply to my expenses and income and keep good records, right? My online systems like PayPal and Wave Apps help me to keep good records of that, so I don't have to freak myself out. You're probably looking at some level of online things, but I use easy apps because if I start looking at software that is complicated, it freaks me out. Okay. So those are just a few questions you can ask. Ask about the cost also. Some software is overkill. I was looking at software called 17 Hats, and 17 Hats is fantastic, but they didn't work for me because they were overkill. It was too complex for me and there's too many layers to that. So I'm using an actual physical real person, and then I use apps like Wave Apps and PayPal to help me keep track of things, right? I will probably have to upgrade this. I have to confess to you guys, I am not the best person to talk to when it comes to running the finances. My advice would be get an expert and do what they tell you, right? That's basically what I'm doing right now. Step 8 is set up your business location. Setting up your place of business is important for the operation of your business, whether you will have a home office, a shared or private office space, or a retail location. You will need to think about your location, equipment, and overall setup, and make sure your business location works for the type of business you will be doing. You will also need to consider if it makes more sense to buy or lease your commercial space, okay? We've touched on this before. Just make sure. For me, for instance, I don't sell my art necessarily where I make my art, because when I sell my art, I want it to look nice. When I make my art, it's a huge mess. So think about that. Think about how you set yourself up for success, right? Step 9. Get your team ready. If you will be hiring employees, now is the time to start the process. Make sure you take the time to outline the positions you need to fill and the job responsibilities that are part of each position. The Small Business Administration has an excellent guide to hiring your first employee that is useful for new small business owners. And I want to just quickly make a note here to you guys. Go to the Small Business Administration of the USA. They have good resources, and especially if you live in the USA, but also go to the small business organizations in your own country if you're not in the USA. Because like, for instance, the example Alyssa mentions here, right? The Small Business Administration has an excellent guide to hiring your first employee. Make sure you hire the right people. Remember, in our previous episode, we were talking about hiring excellent employees. And then before that, how do you become a fantastic leader, a fantastic boss to your people, right? How you actually do that. So go listen to my previous episodes and really make sure you do your homework on these things, okay? So if you are not hiring employees, but instead outsource work to independent contractors, now is the time to work with an attorney to get your independent contractor agreement in place and start your search. Lastly, if you are a true solopreneur, right, that's someone who works alone, hitting the small business road alone, you may not need employees or contractors, but you still need your own support team, right? You probably need an accountant, for instance. This team can be comprised of a mentor, a small business coach, or even your family, and serves as your go-to resource for advice, motivation, and reassurance when the road gets bumpy. You absolutely need a support structure. Remember that. Very important. Step 10, last but not least, promote your small business. Once your business is up and running, you need to start attracting clients and customers. You'll want to start with the basics by writing a unique selling proposition, a USP, and you can look up how to do these online, right? And creating a marketing plan, okay? These can be complex, and if you can at all do so, hire professionals to help you, people who are very well versed in social media marketing. Just be careful, okay? Look at their track record. Don't just hire some company where you will just be a number to them. Make sure you get some good help. Then explore as many small business marketing ideas as possible so you can decide how to promote your business most effectively. I do promote on Google. I have a good SEO strategy, which is search engine optimization, and my web guy is very good at that. So he is absolutely gold to me in this. Okay, just a quick tip there on the side, right? Once you have completed these business startup activities, you will have all of the most important bases covered. Keep in mind that success doesn't happen overnight, right? It's a journey. We already know that. But use the plan you've created to consistently work on your business, and you will increase your chances of success. And with that, we have concluded this article by Alyssa Gregory, a contributor for this Balance Small Business. Okay? Yes. Okay, and I'm going to love and leave you, as always, with our quote of the day. And this is from Mark Cuban, the serial entrepreneur and investor. Don't start a company unless it's an obsession and something you love. If you have an exit strategy, it's not an obsession. And I will see you next time on Your Creative Force. This is Avianne signing off.
Talent is a flame. Genius a fire. Visit us at artbyavian.com. Tune in next time as we explore your creative force. Thank you for listening.